Welcome to the Waiting Warriors podcast. I'm Michelle Bowler. I'm an Army wife of over 8 years, a mom of 4 little girls, and a huge believer that supporting your military or first responder loved one is way easier if you connect with a community. Along with sharing some of my insights and journey, I have set out to interview waiting warriors around the world so we can all learn about their triumphs and their struggles. Together, we can learn to do more than just survive. We can thrive, and that is what being a waiting warrior is all about. Hey, Waiting Warriors! Welcome to another week on the Waiting Warriors podcast. This is Michelle Bowler, your host, and this week we have I'm really excited to talk to this guest and get to pick her brain. We have Vanessa Hartman. Welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk with you.
Good. And just as a reminder, we started recording these, I was going to say videoly, with video, whatever the right term is. Videoly. We'll just make videoly a term. So if you want to see Vanessa's beautiful face, then you can, I think it's fun to connect a face to the words. Watch that on YouTube. If not, just keep on listening on your podcast platform. But Vanessa has been married to a soldier in the medical field for 12 years. They have a 7-year-old son, and she has a business that helps people create their own homeschool co-ops and live a healthier lifestyle with Young Living. So I actually just got introduced to Vanessa through a mutual friend and Army wife, Alara, who has like one of the most amazing and touching stories, which is in episode 18. And Alara sent me Vanessa's Instagram handle so I could check her out and not see her, but connect with her. And I started scrolling like we always do. And immediately I was like, oh, I need to talk to her. Like you look at her feed and you just get like this really good vibe. And then I started reading your content and I was like, oh, everyone needs to talk to her. Like everyone needs some Vanessa in their life. You just have a very smooth is the best term that I've been able to come up with. Like it's just a smooth, calm vibe. Like life doesn't have to be complicated. Life doesn't have to be crazy or bad or just negative. Like, have you always been like this, or was Vanessa 12 years ago different?
Vanessa 12 years ago was very different. And I think that's the best thing I can be open and honest about. The first move actually with my husband, so we live in Maryland now, but our first move was to Maryland and I did not like it. I was not positive Vanessa. I was negative Vanessa. And I can tell you it makes the world a difference if you go from a negative mindset to a positive mindset. It's total, every single aspect is different. So most people would look at my Instagram, they would look at all the messages I'm saying, they would come to my co-op, they would come to my workout group and think I've always been this like holistic, like inspiring person, and I haven't. Like my childhood was not the magical childhood I'm giving my child, and everything I created, it's because I did the work to do the change, and it all really came from that positive mindset. Like just of moving and being like, I'm going to be here for this amount of time. I can either be grumpy about it or I can make the best of it.
So how do you do that though? Because military life throws big wrenches at us, right? Like, I can be positive all I want, but that doesn't mean that hard things aren't going to happen. So how do you start that? How do you keep that going?
So it's actually kind of interesting. When I first met Alara, we were both at Fort Irwin, which if you ask anyone's opinion about Fort Irwin, most people are going to say really negative things about it. And so we were just like, for our family, my husband and I were like filled with that before we went there. My son was like 2 years old, and both my husband and I were like, well, we're just going to go there and we're going to make the best of it. So we went in there with a very positive mindset and totally changed everything. Like I was able to create this mom's workout group and I met like 200, 300, like so many moms, and got to connect with them and give them this space to like come and be that positive outlet, like in this very, very negative environment. My husband did very good, like in his job, and it connected, like the things I was doing was also connecting with his job and helping him. And it all just came together that we were like the Hartman family that was this positive outlet in this like Mojave Desert where everything is brown and like everyone's like, no, I don't want to be here. But they're like, oh yeah, I know the Hartmans, like they're awesome, and this is they help me this way. So I think it's really like you just gotta like dig down inside of yourself and be like, look, yeah. Like for example, in my house right now that we're renting, like our dishwasher's broken. We're technically not supposed to use our fireplace yet. The vacuum broke because I have curly, crazy hair that like clogged the whole thing. The washer and dryer, like the outlet thing, like the circuit breaker like went out. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, like this rental stinks and we're gonna like everything's breaking, I'm like, okay, like it's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll fix it. Like we're still alive. We still have food. Like it's
Mhm.
whatever you give your energy to, whether it's positive or negative, like you put it out, it's going to come back to you.
Yeah. So has it just been that mindset that has kept you grounded and like on a not like on a path, but just like on a good flow? I don't know how to describe it. Like that has just taken you to such a positive place in life, or are there other things like I don't know. Like Alara mentioned minimalism. Like does that really feed into the positive mindset that you're able to have, or is that just minimalism and holistic living, is that just something you do because you enjoy, or do you feel like those things feed into the positive mindset?
So I definitely am a believer of it's all about your complete lifestyle. Like I could have a positive attitude, but like all these other things could come and like drown that out, you know? So minimalism, like I obviously love exercise. Like so I guess the best way to just break it down is describe like a day in my life. So I wake up like I actually so it's 9 o'clock here for me and I don't stay up till 9 o'clock. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like my husband and my son were both like, how are you gonna stay up till 9 o'clock, mom? So I go to bed super early because I
Mhm.
wake up at like 3, 4 a.m. And I love having that like quiet time to myself. Like the world is quiet. Like my husband and my son are sleeping. And so like I can do all these things I want to do. So if I want to exercise or I want to read or I want to meditate or I want to get my work done, like whatever I need to do, I do during that time. And
Mhm.
then that sets the intention for my day that I'm not like waking up feeling like frazzled and so from there, like I go to, we'll like eat breakfast, like usually as a family for all here, or like we'll have tea and coffee and kind of like just like check in. And
Mhm.
then I get in the shower, or I'll exercise first and get in the shower. And then I have a breathing exercise I do in the shower. So I take a deep breath for everything I'm grateful for, and then take a deep breath for everything that's challenging me. And so I feel like my whole day is very intentional, but that positive mindset is what sets a tone for it. But definitely, I think once you get in tune with intentional living, then it plays into a part of like minimalism of, okay, especially like as a military family. So this is the 19th house I've lived in. And
Oh,
not just like in our military time, but like some in
right.
college and before. But when you're constantly moving, like you're feeling that stuff. So for us, actually, my husband's been in, well, so we did Maryland, Hawaii, California, Hawaii, Maryland. And every time we moved, we've always been packed in a day. And when our household goods arrive, we're able to unpack in that same day. So, I mean, that's very freeing. Like, you're not feeling like, oh my gosh, like, is this the right place? Where am I going to put this?
Mhm.
And so it definitely helps your mindset, I feel like, because you're already overwhelmed. Like, okay, I'm in a new place. I need to comfort my child. He's sad that we left our old house and our friends. Like, I don't have an abundance of time to like, I need to unpack for a week or a month, you know? And
Right.
so I think the key to everything is just intentional living of your attitude and where you're spending your time.
Mhm. So is it like with intentional living, is it just that everybody should like how can people develop that for themselves? Is it just you should intentionally live this way or how can people start that for themselves without like just taking on something that other people do?
So it's actually perfect timing because I read this quote this morning. So we're in November right now, and it's
Mhm.
separating and saying no, Vember. So like we all like you have the same 24 hours in a day that I do,
Mhm.
but we're all in charge of the time, like our time. So we can't hit the pause button. We can't like fast forward, rewind any of the things.
Right.
And so we're given this time and where we choose to put our time is up to us. So it's so much of like saying like, okay, like I want to do it all. Like absolutely, it sounds fun. But being like, I'm sorry, I have to say no. And it's hard when it comes to friends and family and being like, look, I love you. You know I love you, but I'm sorry, like I just can't do it all.
Yeah.
And like I think it's important too for our kids to see us do that because then it's showing them like time is valuable and how you spend it is valuable. And so we're teaching them from our example of like, for us homeschooling, especially, it's like, okay, we're really in charge of our schedule. And so
Mhm.
how we spend Monday is up to us. How we spend Tuesday is up to us. And yeah, we could sign up for all the things, but think about how we would feel.
Yeah. So how have you determined what like not what dictates your day, but like what are the top priorities for you?
So I think a big thing to evaluate, especially like when you're looking at your calendar, like I look at it as kind of like sacred planning of like, okay, so if I say yes to this, this means I'm saying no to like this.
Mhm.
I also like to look at it as like, okay, we're gonna do our homeschool co-op. Like, I don't want to have something in the evening or the afternoon that we have to like constantly looking at time. Like, we gotta go. Like, I wanted to just be like, we're here, we're fully here, and then my son calls it like, well, I call it settling in when we come home. I'm like, we're gonna settle in. Like, I'm gonna unpack our bags, like, the dishes, water bottles away, all that. Um, so like, I like to have that time to kind of like transition back. He gets to go play, and we just get to soak in everything we did. But the best takeaway I have learned from whatever I sign us up for is how we feel afterwards. So that time of like settling in, like, do we feel drained and exhausted? Like it's probably not the right thing. Or do we
Mm.
feel like nourished and inspired and like just supported and grounded, like from the conversations and the play with the kids? Because like everything we expose ourselves to, like we're feeling like fully, like, you know, like mentally, physically, everything, we're taking that in. And so I try and only schedule the things that are going to like lift us back up, not be like, oh my gosh, like,
Mhm.
why do we do this? Why are we keep going here?
Yeah. What do you do? Because like you've moved time and time again, and I know you've experienced a number of different places. What do you do when you're trying to be intentional and you're trying to create those kind of feelings, but like stuff, the same things, especially, don't exist in California as they do in Maryland? So, how do you make sure, if you're being so intentional, how do you make sure that you get those same needs met?
So I think too, with each move, it's a different phase of our life. So it's always going to be changing. So the first time we lived in Maryland, we didn't have my son. My husband and I were newly married, like out of college, and I was working full time in corporate wellness, and my husband was starting his military career, and he was like on night shift, and I was working more like the Monday through Friday, like
Mhm.
government hours, and and so like our life then is completely different than now. And then we moved to Hawaii, and it was really hard for me to find a job, and so I ended up just starting to create my own thing. I would travel around the island. I would like meet with moms in their home and help them with fitness, and their kids could be there. And then I started a mom's workout group once I had my son in Hawaii. And then we moved to Fort Irwin, and my son was still young. And so I was like, okay, I know how to lead workouts and all this, so I can do that. But then once he got older and we decided to homeschool, then I was like, well, he doesn't want to be at workout groups with babies crawling around. Like, I need to start creating homeschool co-ops now. And the funny thing is, like, I never thought I would homeschool, and here I am, like, leading homeschool co-ops and helping people
Yeah.
do it. And I'm like, I feel like though, once you have like leadership and confidence, and you know what you're looking for your family, like what you need in that move and in that space that you're there for like that 2 to 3 years. If it doesn't exist, like you can create it. And once you create something once, use what you learned from that time and keep going. And you're going to help everyone, because it really just takes one person to start it, and everyone that wants it, they're going to come there and support it.
Yeah. Which is like, it sounds so simple. And yet, as you're saying it, I'm thinking, okay, how many times we're waiting for the MWR to create it, or the military in general to create this program, and why isn't the base more focused on the families and creating these things? It's like, no, but then you just say it, it's like, well, what if we just create it? Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like too, on the military spouse aspect of it, like I very rarely like label myself as military spouse. I feel it the most when you're like in that awkward stage of like you're leaving a place and you're researching all the things for the next place, and then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, like starting all over again. But actually at Fort Irwin, I had no support from the MWR. I was told to
Yeah.
stop the free workout group I was running multiple times, even though it was outside at a playground. Um, I was threatened I was going to lose my house, like all kinds of crazy things, yes.
Well,
And it wasn't until I had the general of the base's support that they were like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. How can we support you? And then everyone wanted to like endorse it like it was their program.
yeah.
And so too, it can be intimidating because there's all these rules you have to follow. And
Yeah.
unless like I was like, you can't, my big thing, I was like, benefiting other people here. And you
Yeah.
can't tell me I can't exercise with my friends. Like that's what I kept telling myself and all the other people. But yeah, so too, I can see it can be really intimidating if you're living on a military base and there's all these rules you have to follow. And there's these things that you're like, I wish they had this. Why don't they have this? And like, I feel like so many times they don't have that. It's because
Mhm.
one person complained and it just, but two, it shouldn't, it's almost like, okay, well, people need that. So let's like
Mhm.
bring it back. And that's what
Yeah.
I focus on, like bring it back to a positive of like, yes, this stinks. There's all these things, but how can we like keep moving forward in an energetic way that it's gonna bring it back?
Yeah. Okay. I love that you told them no. Like, you can't tell me no. You know what I mean? Like, I don't it and, just so I don't get myself in trouble with anybody somewhere along down the road. Like, I'm not saying you should break rules on post. Like, you were doing it in a way that was following the rules, but then you stuck to your guns when they were fighting you on it, and you stood up for what you believed in. And I love that, because it was just like, we need this, and what I'm doing is right. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not good. Like, I I like that. That's fun. I'm a little feisty, and it's fun, fun that way. Okay, so like positivity, like we want to keep the positive mindset, and that just feeds into everything. What have you seen in just your experience? What is like the most common thing, quote unquote thing, that you think military spouses could change that would give us a better positive mindset? Do you know what I mean? Like,
So I actually, my husband and I met because we met in ROTC in college, and I did the National Guard for 5 years, and that helped me
yeah.
definitely understand this military lifestyle more. The biggest thing I could say is let go of everything out of your control. because the more you're like, oh my gosh, like, are we gonna move here? Or when are the movers coming? All these like ridiculous things that like we don't have control of. Like we moved during the pandemic and we have a
Totally.
giant chip in our bench in our table, and there's no way that's getting fixed or even documented. Like you got to let it go and control your reaction. And two, like our kids are learning from those reactions, like um, so it's like the things that we feel like we need to get worked up about, like, do they really matter? Like reminding myself, like, okay, is this really what's important in my life or not? And
Mhm.
like the more we start to catch ourselves in those moments, the easier it gets. And so whether it's like, okay, I'm feeling really overwhelmed because there's all these things out of my control, like maybe I need to go for a run, maybe I need to do some yoga, maybe I need to grab an oil and put it on my chest, maybe I just need like 2 minutes to breathe and then I can handle like my 5 kids, and I don't have 5 kids, but like my 5 kids in this move or whatever, like there's really small practices that really make a big impact, but a lot of times, like, I think it's easy to forget about them.
Mhm. So, kind of on the similar line, as a minimalist, what have you seen is like something that most of us could let go, like something tangible that most of us, for some reason, hold on to, but we could let go?
There's probably a lot of stuff. So I feel like think about it when you watch the movers come in your house and box everything up and put it like especially like we just moved here from Hawaii, so you watch them put it in crates.
Mhm.
Imagine like all of that falling into the ocean. What would you really care about? Like if you had to pick 5 things,
Okay.
and being like, okay, maybe there's things I could let go of. Like if I'm, for me, like the most important thing to me, I love all the pictures I've taken of my son and all the pictures I have of my husband and I, and all that's digital. So it's always with me. Like I don't need that physical thing. So, I
Mhm.
mean, we've moved from Hawaii twice and we've lived through some crazy moves and been like, I don't know if our stuff is going to make it. Like, and so it's like if everything ends up in the ocean, like I was like, I'm gonna be more sad for the fish and the like environment that all my stuff ended up in the ocean than me missing it. Like, so it's really releasing all of it, Like I look at the military lifestyle of, yeah, we're in this for 20 years and all this stuff, like it's creating these childhood memories and everything for my son, but also like I'm not attached to like if my couch doesn't arrive like or gets beat up or our table, like it's okay. Like we still
Mhm.
have us and we still are always going to be able to make it work. And so I think a lot of times it's more what I look at on a daily basis that may be helpful is all the things that like you constantly feel like you're picking up or you're keeping up with. Like, how can you simplify those?
Yeah.
So, is it like stuff that's collecting dust or stuff that like kids are like picking up bins and just dumping them out and not playing with them? Like, simplify those things, and that's where you're going to start to feel more time and not be as exhausted. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, like as soon as you get on the purging bin, like binge, you're like, let's get rid of it all. Like, so
Yeah.
you just need that first, like inspiration to get you going. And
Yeah.
then like, you really don't need help from anyone. You're going to do it all on your own.
Just feel the cleanse. Ooh,
Yes.
on your table. Just feel the cleanse, and then you like let go. Can
So
you?
I actually just recently did on my Instagram a whole series about minimalism and like
Mhm.
every aspect of it. And then kind of showed too like a visual of like what our house looks like, what we keep, and it's a constant thing. Like a lot of times people think like, okay, I'm going to do this big purge and then I'm done.
Mhm.
I look at it as 4 seasons. So like
Okay.
we're about to go into like winter and the holidays, and that's like a big time to be like, okay, like Christmas presents are coming in, like stuff needs to go
Mhm.
up. So I started, and two, it's important for kids, I feel like, to learn from the beginning, like letting go stuff. Like, so a lot of times moms will be like, well, I just like sneak stuff out when they're not paying attention. But it's good for them to learn, like, okay, I'm getting new things. Like, what am I ready to let go of?
Yeah.
So what we do is with every season change, like I'll go in Pike's room and I'll be like, okay, we'll go through like the drawers under his bed and the bins that he has in his room, and I'm like, what are we ready to pass on to friends or donate or send to friends and surprise them, like whatever we want to do. But I feel like it's so important for them to learn from the beginning how to choose, like, I'm not really playing with this, someone else could enjoy this. Because
Hmm.
if we as moms like sneak around, we're like, I'm gonna just donate this, and they don't notice, like that doesn't benefit them in the long run.
Yeah. Then they don't learn the process, and then they're adults and they're our age and trying to learn it. And then they're like me, who was, oh, I held on to toys and I probably should let go of like little kid clothes. And we don't need all those bins that are like my just in casers or something. Like, yeah, if I had learned it as a kid, it would have been a lot easier come now. That is true. It's funny because, like, we think we're so often we think we're doing our kids favors, and then it maybe seems easier in the long it right now, but in the long run, like, it doesn't do us or them favors, and it's just such a funny cycle that we can get into.
One of the best, I think, things of putting like toys in perspective was I read this quote in one of the books I read, and it said, if you as a parent can't clean up all the toys that are out in 5 minutes, it's too much for kids to manage. So, I mean, now like in Kai's room, I'll be like, Kai, like clean up your room before we leave, and he's definitely back before like 5 minutes. And even if I go in there, like I'm like it takes me maybe 2 or 3 minutes. That
Yeah,
it's like 5 minutes. You can do a lot. Like you can put away a lot of laundry, dishes, and stuff. But like for kids to, if they have this giant playroom that's like stacked, like, bins and bins all the way to the wall and everything's been dumped, like there's no way you could like
yeah,
throw it back in, but it's not gonna
that's right.
look Pinterest again.
No, not that that's the goal, but it's like the good feelings won't be there if it's just all thrown. Well, thank you. What would you say is your key to thriving that you would want to share with your fellow waiting warriors?
Oh my goodness, I feel like it's so many things. But I think just once you get in a habit of one practice, like self-care practice for yourself as a mom that like really makes you feel good, then you want more. And so you're going to keep looking for like, okay, how can I incorporate more of those practices into my day? And not feeling guilty about it. And also too, like I feel like the most important thing we can give to our children is us showing we're taking care of ourselves too, because then they're gonna like acknowledge that and be like, that's important too.
Mhm.
So I think it's just starting with something you look forward to that like inspires you, fills your bucket, like gives you that placebo effect that you're like, I'm ready to go. Let's
Mhm.
take on the day, and then just keep doing more of that and keep expanding it and starting small and making it sustainable. I've had so many friends just try and be like, I'm going to do all the things, and it doesn't work. Like, small, sustainable. That's the way to go.
Yeah, that's a good because I I have to really fight it, like, to not be that person that's just like, "Okay, I'm gonna drink a gallon of water every day, and I'm gonna wake up early, and I'm gonna exercise before my kids, and I'm gonna read this number of time or this number of times, this minutes a day, and I'm gonna like all the recommendations. I'm gonna do it in 24 hours." I don't feel like it actually fits in 24 hours. Like all of the healthy, you know, the exercise, read, just the actual like balance, like I just don't think that it fits. But I feel like if you yeah, if you try to just shove it all in, then you get upset and you're not feeling more at peace. But as like this last year, I feel like I've been trying to just take one thing at a time. And even just that one thing, you feel more at peace, you feel more grounded, which we can all use in crazy 2020. everything is thrown at us.
Well, and then it feels more like something you look forward to instead of something you have to check off your list for the day.
Yeah, that's true, which is probably really, really important for everybody. Well, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us, your story, your point of view. I really enjoy learning more. Again, guys, like I said, her Instagram is fabulous. I have really enjoyed reading and learning and just then implementing and like finding little things that I can do to just make your life like that much better and that much happier. If people do want to get in touch, what is the best way for them to contact you?
I mainly just do Instagram,
Okay.
so
Okay, and we will put
that's
that
the way.
the links. It's not your full name. It's like Vanessa.
It's Vanessa's Holistic Living. And then I have to actually a YouTube channel I started when I lived at Fort Irwin. So if you want to exercise, there's tons of little exercise videos that you can do with your kids, you can do at the playground, you can do with friends. Like I couldn't bring myself to delete it. It was too cute, and it's fun to look back up too. And I keep telling myself I need to add new stuff to it. And so if anyone wants to see something and have me add new stuff, I totally can. I just haven't come up with what I want to start doing.
There you go. So think of it and she'll create it. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Vanessa, so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing you and your heart and your just whole being. Guys, really go check her out. Just read a few posts and then you'll become addicted because that's what happens with goodness. When goodness and light are on social media, you just can't stop eating it up. And thank you again, Vanessa. Guys, have a good week. And remember, just because it's hard doesn't mean it has to be miserable. See ya. Hey, Waiting Warriors, if you are heading towards or in the middle of a deployment, or shoot, you're just a military spouse trying to do their best, I want to give you something I've created with you in mind. I've created a free download called 3 Ways to Set Up Your Marriage for a Successful Deployment. I know deployments can be tough, but I am a firm believer that they don't have to ruin your relationship, and I would really love to share with you what I've learned and now have done over and over again in my own marriage. So go to subscribepage.com/3 ways to set up your marriage for a successful deployment, all one word there at the end, or check out the show notes for a link. Or right now you can go to my website, thewaitingwarriors.com, and there's a pretty little yellow button on top waiting for you.